So, welcome all. I'm Matt, and I've actually been around the women in tech side of things now for probably near 5 years, Kevin. I think it's been a while now, and I've mentored various people on the scheme and turned up the sessions and various other things. And me and Kevin have talked for a while about the product management community, and we know we've tried to kick this off a couple of times. So, um, I landed in Ascend, and we wanted to be able to help actually start and drive some of this forward and put a proper set of content together for the year so people know what's happening as well. And that's intertwining with people like Caroline and other people who want to do this. This is not a full takeover of this. This is us just helping move that community along. And like Kevin said, get people, the 139 of them, start and get some of them actually involved in some of this and have something to plan towards as well. So we know we've got something every month happening. Um, so yeah, I will pass over to Kyle in a minute. He's going to take us through just a bit about ourselves so you know who we are and then why we're going to be doing this. And then I'll start and talk about what we're going to do through the year. And then we've just got a quick topic conversation at the end. It should be a fairly light session, but I say it is just to kick this off again. And feel free to ask questions, input. If you want to see some topics discussed, we're open to that. Nothing is set in stone. We just want to get that ball rolling, basically. Kyle is one of the Ascend founders. He set this up 7 years ago now, Kyle. We've been going a while now. With another gentleman called David, and we have been working through various different large organizations and helping them change the way they actually work, with a focus on ways of working and product and other various elements around that. But Kyle, over to you, and you can give us the lowdown, and then I'll take over when you get to the what's next and what we're doing with this.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. Thanks, Matt. So yeah, hi everyone. Nice to meet you all. So yeah, I'm Kyle from Dublin, Ireland. I'd say I've been working in product for about 15 years. About 10 years ago, I met David. We worked together for a few years, and then yeah, 7 years ago we set up Ascend. And I suppose the reason why we set it up was largely the vision, which is radically transforming the way people think and work. And why do we think that? I think it's me and Matt speak about this a lot. It's why I was drawn to product. I think it really invites like a different way of thinking. And it was new to me when I first got introduced to it, and it really helped solve some sort of novel, complex problems. And we talk about this like creating penny drop moments. And when we're working with people, I think the thing that like keeps us going is you see like when the light bulb goes off in someone's brain, and all of a sudden they see the world a different way, like basically through a product lens, and then they almost can't go back. And that's really rewarding. And I think it's kind of what drew us to the work. It's why we started Ascend. And yeah, like when Matt asked us to get involved, was really excited and looking forward to getting to know lots of you, learning from you, and hopefully just sharing some of our stories and what we've learned along the way. So yeah, basically we're small, as I said. There's 15 of us. We're kind of spread across Dublin, Northern Ireland. There's a couple of us in mainland UK, Scotland, one or two sprinkled in Europe, and the Netherlands, and then there's two folks in the US. And like we do lots of things. I mean, the broad buckets that it fit into is organizational transformation. Now we've written things underneath that, but really it's up to the client, like what they want us to do. Like we try and like figure out like why are they doing it, because sometimes they're doing it for cultural reasons, they want to correct the culture. Sometimes they recognize they just have poor hygiene, poor mechanics, so they need to actually just operate better. And then sometimes they're just very clear, we need to become a product-led company. So, we kind of let them drive which one of those we do. The other piece of work we do is just a lot of product strategy and execution. So sometimes this isn't at the organizational level, it's maybe at a business unit level or a team level. And it's just, we get brought in to help them think about like, how do we actually build a product strategy? What does good look like? And then once you have this beautiful thing that's a product strategy, I mean, what do you do with it? How do you actually execute it? And our answer to that is you need an actual team of people. So you need like a really well-bounded team that are focused on the customer, focused on that problem. And that is, that's a fairly new idea to a lot of organizations. They have very loosely bounded groups of people. So that's something we really enjoy doing. And then the third piece is trying to think of large organizations, they want to innovate, but almost because of their size, they can't. And so what we try and do is we try and bring them through an innovation process over 3 months, basically a sprint where we sort of do it for them on the outside. So we're not slowed down by them, but we pull them out to do it with us. And the idea is basically at the end of the 3 months, they have a new like working digital business model based off their existing business model. So it works well for like more traditional companies, like think insurance companies, banks, but also things like the agricultural industry. And so they're basically the three big buckets of areas where we do work. And then yeah, this is the team. So I mean, there's lots of us in Ascend, but it's obviously Matt, myself, Lauren, and Manata. So we're going to be supporting the Women in Tech events. And yeah, so I talked about some of this earlier, but for us, sometimes when we get hired, the clients are almost saying, when will it be done? And it's really like it's a journey that they must go on forever, even though we won't be there forever. It's like they need to think about constantly transforming themselves. And then the other big thing we do is we tend to stay away from frameworks, largely because frameworks don't invite people to think enough. So if you think back to the vision, radically transform the way people think, frameworks tend to have answers where people have to look up the answer. And we have found, and there's lots of literature to support this, that if you take a principle-based approach, A, principles flow through different contexts much better, and B, it invites the user to actually think, how do I apply this principle in this context? And so that's the type of thinking we tend to bring to our clients. And yeah, that's just a reiteration of what I was saying. And indeed, like, I mean, look, there's lots of principles in life. We have to pick three. Why three? Simply because the power of three. Four is too many for people to remember. It's a simple story. So we went with three. And I suppose these are the three principles that we think are the most important. So the first one is just about how do you understand value from the customer's perspective? And there's a whole heap of stuff we can do there around customer profiles, customer journey mapping, etc. And then once you understand that value, given the problem space that you're in, you need lots of feedback to understand, are you constantly delivering, etc. So deliver customer value early and iterate fast feedback is the first one. The second one is thinking about, one of the things that we see lots of teams and organizations, the trap to fall into is they measure from when they start work to when they finish work. So like start working on it to the output. Whereas where we want them to think about it is, well, when did you first come up with the idea? Because you're actually deploying resource from when you come up with the idea till you start the idea. And then what's the outcome? So what's the sort of user, customer, or business change in behavior you're looking for? And that the work, your job as a team, as a company, isn't done until you've achieved that outcome. And so it's actually trying to get them to realize that that's part of the work as well. It's not just about building the thing, it's that you built the thing in the first place to try and drive some sort of behavioral change, and that you must stay in the fight basically until you see that behavior change or not, in which case the idea didn't work. So that's the flow principle. And then the mindset principle is just given the world that we live in. I mean, the world was an incredibly complex, uncertain place before AI that's just exploded it. And it's just trying to help the people that we work with understand that, we really need to sort of adopt the beginner mindset, the discovery mindset in everything that we do, and just recognize that our brains aren't very well suited to thinking in complex problem spaces. And we need to sort of recognize when we need to slow our thinking down and apply some deliberate like thinking tools. So that's the whole adopt discovery mindset principle. I didn't realize Matt had all these slides ready for me, by the way. So this is
I came prepared just to give us an overview so you understand why we're building the rest of the content out the way we do. So
I'm only joking, okay, I've lost you, Matt, one sec. Okay, so these are the practices. So yeah, so what the practices are trying to do is the practices are trying to bring the principles to life. So value definition, visualization, and experimentation. So value definition is very much how you basically bring to life the principle of customer value. Visualization isn't the only practice, but it's one of the best practices for bringing to life flow. So it's really simple. Just visualize the work. And once you visualize the work, it's got to do with the fact that our brains can consume visual information, something like, I can't remember the exact number, but something like 1,000 times faster than, written or other types of information. So that's the visualization practice. And then the third practice is experimentation. And that's very much how we sort of practice having a discovery mindset, which is, well, if you must accept that we don't know, and therefore you run an experiment to try and validate the assumptions in our thinking. So the three practices. 1 sec there, Matt. Okay, we're back. So, oh God, sorry, I'm off trouble. So
I'll go for this, pal. Don't worry.
Brilliant.
It's I'll sort this. So one of the things that I've been talking to Kevin about over the period of time is trying to get, as I say, that view of what we want to do across a period of time, because we know that some things are being dropped in different communities of practice, and give people a chance to actually plan to be there, depending on what they actually want to see, what they don't. At the minute, we're planning on 3 in-person events. So one of those will be in Northern Ireland, because we don't have a presence across there at the minute. So we work with Kevin to see where, I think, Kevin, a couple of weeks back, you sent out that map where we've got dots on it all over where we've done things. And there's a big gap over in Ireland and Northern Ireland. So we're going to actually have a look at that and try and create some events there for people. We are aiming to try and get probably a summer in-person event around the London area, I think, because I think a lot of our members are still from there, some of those things. So we're going to have a look at that at the minute with to be confirmed on actual topic. We're planning in, and Caroline, this as well, obviously you will fit in this as well. We'll weave all this into what you would like to do as well, but monthly virtual events on some of the topics that we've just been discussing at a higher level, everything from understand your customer to experimentation to different assets that we'd use to help drive that. Hopefully we're aiming for 1 a month from now on. That may change and we might add more depending on what people want to do. I will go on to what that looks like going forward, but that is subject to change. Say if we find that there's an area that people want to know more about or actually struggle with within that whole product management space, we're going to flex depending on what the community want, right? We have a library of assets, like we said, everything from customer profiles to test and learn cards to God knows what. So we're going to be putting them on the actual community page as well, and descriptions of how to use them, as well as potentially other links that help you utilize them within your day jobs if you are actually sitting in that product management space, or alternatively if you actually want to learn more about that and move into the space itself. We want to start that community going and more posts on the actual main feed itself, and create discussion topics and other bits like that. We create a newsletter from a wide ranging set of topics along this line of product management. So we're going to drop that in each week just for people to read if they want to, and then run some surveys again to see what's the biggest impact to you within the product space, to say what you'd like to know more about, what still perplexes you about some of these things we do, and that will help us just feedback in and drive the community the way you want. As I say, this is for all of us, right? We're not here to just steamroll this and say this is what you should be having. Now we want feedback, we want to make it something that people find valuable, right? So that is the idea of this going forward. So chime in with what you want. If there's a survey, fill it out, please. It will help us get what you want to be delivered.
Yeah. On that point, Matt, I just want to make it really clear that we're massively grateful for the work that Ascend are doing. You guys are going to do a lot of the lifting and shifting to make sure we've got a critical mass of content, activity, reasons to visit the space, but you're not trying to monopolize it and own it. So this doesn't change the existing dynamic of other people in the group sharing their events, volunteering to come and deliver talks like Caroline is next month, and other in-person events that have a product focus will exist outside of these 3 that we've got outlined here. So our next event in Birmingham, whilst it's not a product specific event, all the speakers are from a product background and they're talking about career paths and things. So this is just giving us, a real great foundation to build more activity off. Carry on, mate.
No, as I say, we have 3 in-person events planned. Like I say, at the minute, we might have a look at that entering the world, because that might be similar to your Birmingham one. But we were chatting about that because I think between even the 4 of us with Ascend, we've got very different entries into this world about how we came in and actually what we found working for bigger companies, smaller companies, some of the challenges of both and different things. And some of it is hopefully do a speed networking event in, say, Belfast, to get some of those people together and introduce them, and again create those communities in places so people can chat to each other offline from this. like I said, summer, hopefully a keynote speech and a panel discussion. We were talking about something potentially on failure and product failure along that and how we learn from this sort of thing. We are in contact with potentially a company to maybe partner there, so I'm trying to work through that at the minute. And then October again, we will move one to Dublin and look at actual product design, with obviously Lauren being one of our key people on that in terms of delivering workable prototypes and everything else from there. So that is the plan for the minute. Say this could change depending on what people want here. We will still be doing at least 2 of these over in Ireland and Belfast, just because, as I say, there's no coverage there at the minute, so we're trying to change that. Anybody got any questions on that first, or anything they would like to see at an in-person event? And I am inviting people to not sit there in silence.
I think for an in-person event, it's got to be mixed, hasn't it? In terms of some sort of practical, do you know about this kind of hot topic in product management? And then also kind of skills based. And sometimes that could just be basic things in how you might approach a certain problem or challenge, through to, I don't know, like perhaps common tools that might be in usage.
No, I fully agree. That, like I said, it's trying to cover a lot of bases there, and I want people to be able to speak to each other as well, and I want it to be an open thing where people are not just being talked at for the entire time. So we're trying to find that nice sweet spot there, but definitely, Caroline. Right, our virtual calendar events. Again, if you see something there that you think you would rather change out, or we put something out and 90% of people come back saying we really have this problem area, this will change, but at the minute this is what it looks like for the next set of virtual events that we're going to be running. Not everything will be applicable to everybody, because obviously if we look at this community, we're trying to cover everybody from people wanting to go into this area to people who've been in it for years and years and have different levels of experience. So we're trying to put a mix of things for different people and then bring this to life with real examples that we've seen. And again, I invite the community to share their examples of that. Obviously, we know data is sensitive and some clients are sensitive, but where we can, get this out of being theory and talk about the reality of this while we're doing these jobs in these companies. Obviously, starting off with the role of the product manager. And we'll look at, I mean, me and Carl were chatting the other day, but it won't just be probably the product manager, it'll be some of those roles that support product management in general and how we actually interact with them as team members and everything else like that. And then we'll start off with going down that discovery mindset. I think everywhere I've been, and I say we talked about it at the start of this, but that discovery mindset is one of the big things we've seen through the people we've actually worked with and trying to change that, going from the certainty mindset to actually that discovery and having that thing that we have a belief or a hypothesis, let's go and look at that. And then down from there, obviously things like product strategy, and as Carl said, how do you get that off a page, right? A lot of people talk about it, but how do you bring that to life and understand the progress you're making against that? Then we're trying to do this in order of what we think, how you would build this going through obviously the job and everything else, with the exception of probably the last one in December. But one of the things we're looking at then is that discovery, experimentation, and how we bring something to life instead of that big project thing where we disappear for 12 months and put something live, right? More focus then on experimentation and turn assumptions into some sort of well-defined experiment and data behind that to make a decision, rather than just that I believe, well, we're going to do this, which is what we see in places. We will have more of a session on assets. And again, Caroline, this goes back to what you were saying. It's given people the tools behind some of this. So each of them will have it in, but we're going to do a bigger section on how some of these actually fit together with working examples and try and sit and work through some of them as a community and a team, and then obviously create the community chatter on the feed as well about this as a follow-up. Customer journey mapping, I always find really useful, but trying to understand truly what your customer has in terms of problem statements and everything else like that, and where we should be focusing, and then how we link product management back onto that. Then we have product metrics. So again, how do you know you're doing the right thing, right? We talk to our customers a lot about this, but how do you actually know that when you put something, or you're trying to actually develop something, that there's a value behind that and you're doing the right thing at the right time. Then we want to talk about some real case studies, and again, we will be inviting people from the community to actually talk through this. I don't just want it to be Ascend talking about what we've done. I want us to share this and try and learn from each other. And then the final one, which seems odd after I've talked through all that, but goal setting and OKRs. It's in December because obviously the start of the new year, so we thought it might be helpful to people in those jobs to talk about it now and be able to maybe set that going forward, and really work through that. So that is our first draft of what this might look like. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I think it looks really good. One of the things that I'm interested in is the interaction of product with other areas, and where that can be tension, where that creates something really powerful, because you can't just swoop in like a hero and do it all and say, this is what we're going to do it. And I think that's probably a theme that weaves through this, but maybe that's quite an interesting discussion topic for the community. And if it's got a bit of interest, to pull on a threads for an event of that, because I think that's something I've seen. It can all be organised in very different ways. You know, a product team reporting to tech is very different from one where organisationally that reports to sales. Whether you're in-house or a vendor, they've got different tensions. So I just think the interactions in different setups, orgs with other departments is something I find quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Laura, do you want to ping me afterwards and we can have a chat about that and try and put something around it and see? Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm on leave from Friday, so I will follow up, but I'll go quiet before.
It's all right. I'm not going to hold you to it instantly. Anybody else got any comments on this, or anything they would like to see that we might have not covered? As I said, we will put more of an agenda around these when we firm them up, so you know what's actually going to be discussed in them. But as a higher level, does anybody agree, disagree, have anything they want to see in it that we've missed?
I think it looks good.
Quite. I'll take that. And then what have we got next? I want to have a bit of a conversation to actually get this whole thing going. 2 topics. What's the thing you love about the whole product management area? Think about that end-to-end, think about specifics about it, whatever that is. And what's the one thing you'd want to improve within that whole arena?
I'm happy to go first.
Yeah, go on, Kyle.
I mean, I think the thing I love about product management is definitely like it's the people centricity of it. So like the customer centricity, but also like the team. It's very much about the actual people in the team. Because it very much felt like when I started before I worked in product, like it wasn't like that. And then when I started working in product, it like felt like I was playing a team sport again. So I think like I love that, like being in a team and it'd be very like human centered. The thing that I improve is actually the thing that Laura said, because when it fails, I think it fails because of the way in which the organization has set it up, and that just crushes my soul. So I think that's something that I would change if I could. Yeah.
Kat, there you are. Hi, Kat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good to be here. So I came to product management through marketing route. So I love the people focused thing about it, and I've got a super strong ethics focus around making people's lives better. So one thing I love about product management is really trying to bring that to life. So using things like accessibility tools, not as a obstruction, but as an opportunity to do some really cool, like innovative stuff. But one thing I would improve within product management is having that people focus. So at the moment where I am in my new role, everything's quite tech focused, whereas I'd love to bring the people back into it. And I think, if we make life easier for the, 2% that need a leg up, then everyone else will fly through it and it'd be great. So that's kind of where I'd like to make improvements.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, I read your post on the channel the other week.
Yes, I meant to put the part 3 up last week and I didn't, so I'll put part 3 up again soon. I think I've only put part 1 in the chat, so I'll put another one in.
Yeah, get them on there. Say that's what I want to try and drive, that interaction. It was a really good read, so thank you for that. Who else we got? Laura, you're not eating now.
So you mentioned that end to end, and that's what I like. I started off in my career temping, and I hated it because you were just one little cog in a wheel. But being able to see across the whole process and be a bit creative, because you're meant to be picking, you're meant to be saying, why is that? Have you thought about doing something different? So I quite like being a bit creative and being there to shake things up, but doing that in a practical fashion that works, and you can deliver something, whether it's teams or a process or a bit of kit. I like
Yeah.
that balance between creative, practical, and disruptive. And the balance with that, perhaps it's a old topic, and I'm thinking of something new that someone hasn't said, is around tech debt. It's a hot topic.
Yeah.
Is it tech debt? Should we think about it like that? Should we not? You know, it always is quite a divisive topic. So I'll throw that one out there, just to be an agitator.
I think that's an interesting one, and I was speaking to somebody at the Send the other day about that, because on some of the things we look at, tech debt's classed as failure demand. And my argument is, if you're trying to deliver something of value sooner with an 80% solution that you've said, I'll put this other bit down there, that is a good way of working, not a failure in my bit. But if you've missed something in tech debt, or you haven't updated databases or certain other bits of code in the background, that to me is on the negative side of tech debt. So I think it depends on what we're doing and what the product is to where it sits, right?
And it's balance and how long you keep doing 80-20, because at some point you might need to go back and chip at that last one. So,
and I think that's one of the things we look at, is how, going back to the visualization side, right? How do you keep a track of that and truly what's in that backlog as tech debt compared to new features, right? Everybody wants to do the lovely shiny new features, but you're building up on that, whether that's, let's say, fundamental infrastructure, whether it's stuff to do with data, which sometimes gets left and things like that, right? But it's being able to manage that as a product manager and product owner, being able to pull it in and go, we should be doing a little bit of this now to stop that.
And it can be really, really political, and it is how you package it and how you talk about it, which I think, again, is a big thing about products, because you need to be able to talk about it in a way that's accessible and makes it relevant to some of the decision makers, to some of the stakeholders. So
I think that's a great point, though. I think the storytelling part of being a product manager, I think, sometimes overlooked, and using the data to help tell a story, so you get away from just, oh, we feel like this is happening. Well, let's talk through what's actually happening and tell that to a number of different stakeholders around that business, as well as your customers. So might have a look at that as a topic as well.
I'm going to pick on Bethan and Didi, if that's okay, because you two stand out on the call for me as people who don't work purely in product. And that's a real key reason for this group, actually, is to help people in other areas of tech and transformation to understand the world of product. And if that's a path they want to pursue specifically, or they want to help them in their current job by expanding their product knowledge. So for you guys, Beth and Didi, and anyone else that isn't in the world of product specifically, how does it touch your job at the moment, and what would you like to see out of this kind of space? What's your reason for joining the call today?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I am in the process of making sure that we have product managers or product owners within the organisation for our critical applications. It's not something we've historically had, so it's quite a new concept for us. We have pockets of good people, but we're trying to kind of grow that. And I've been asked to, in my role of trying to kind of make the organisation think strategically and work with people in terms of what technology can be delivered. I've been asked to set up a community of practice. So this is perfect, really, because it's hopefully going to give us all the building blocks that we need to do that effectively, and to provide the people in the organisation with the tools to do the best they can in this space. So I think kind of the one thing, just sort of looking at the quickfire topics, I really like the focus that product manager role has on the business needs, and that can be people and tech. And I think that's really critical, because without that, you lose the clear direction for something. and somebody that knows enough about that business area to really inform the decisions that are made. And sometimes the tech can kind of take over rather than the business driving what they really need to happen. And the sort of improvement I'd be looking for is really getting that better collaboration across IT, product owners, product managers, and business to make sure that everything is working for everybody involved in the solutions. So.
And I suppose, Beth, is that your biggest problem area when you're trying to go from that existing way of working to your new way of working? Is it trying to get people together to think with a common goal, working on the same thing, get rid of those boundaries between places? Is that?
Yes, definitely. We really, I think lots of organisations suffer with this, but we do really have quite siloed ways of working. And again, in my remit, it's about trying to connect all of those folks together all of the time and making sure that everyone's talking and sharing what they're doing. And so that product strategy sounds great, because if we can have that visual that we can share on a regular basis, that'd be brilliant.
I think from my background of doing this in places, I was a product manager in places, and then I've been a consultant in different places. I think that visualization is a really strong thing, because I think, like we say, when you write something down, people interpret that a different way. If you actually try and bring a simple visualization to that, I think it's more powerful and people are on the same page faster. And being able to share and communicate is a big one on that, right? Because what I found is when I go in places, when they're very different groups, it's just like over the fence and, well, it's their problem now. It's like, well, actually, as a product team, it's all of your problem. You win or lose together. It's not a developer's problem. It's not somebody in your third party. It's everything goes together. So I think it's a really interesting challenge you've got there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thanks.
We also got Ndidi.
Hello.
Hello.
Of course, Kevin drags me into it when I'm just trying to be incognito. Sorry.
You can't be incognito. Come on.
So I think the question was, hopefully I didn't miss it, is why did I join the group and what is it I know about product management? For me, as a project manager, when I implement a project, I have to pass it on to someone. And when I say someone or thing, it usually goes into a BAU process. Unfortunately or fortunately, where I've worked, that BAU process hasn't always been defined by someone who's going to own the thing that I've just finished implementing. So it could be either a service, a product, or a combination of both. So for me, it's just understanding. I'm probably flagging early on in my project that this is going to go into a BAU process, and I need to know who's going to own the system. And what I found that is there are people who work on the processes, but they don't necessarily own the system. So they're sort of like pinpoints within the process that runs through a system. So it's just sort of carrying those people along, and then probably making the business understand that someone has to own it, because once it's done with the project, then it goes back into BAU. So for me, it's just understanding what the terminology product management I can't get my words out. Product management means. Is it just necessarily just someone who's going to be running that system, or will it be a group of people who runs the system, but then there'll be a single point of contact? And how involved is a product manager to be in the implementation of either an upgrade to an existing system where I have to project manage, or implementation of a new system because we're trying to improve a way of working, or we're trying to improve a process, or we're trying to, do you see what I mean? So for me, it's more of the curiosity of what that is.
Yeah. So
that when I'm speaking to people who may fall into this remit and may or may not be part of my project, I know exactly how to speak to them to get stuff done. I can manage expectation. I know what they're expecting. And that's all combined with obviously doing a whole RFP process, working with business analysts, because where I work at the moment, there's an overflow between the business analyst and the product owner. So I guess my question for you guys is, again, and I apologize if you've mentioned this already earlier on, but is there a difference between a product owner and a product manager? Or are they one and the same?
So that's a very good question, Kyle. We were talking about this yesterday, right? In terms of the roles and things like that, right? I still find that different businesses set these up differently.
Right.
And sometimes places, people just inherit these things because it's a title and they actually don't have any accountability or the role of that. They're just being titled as that, which is where these things normally fail, right? And for me, and I think the first place that I was in where I went into the whole product thing, they got this the wrong way around in terms of what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, your manager's looking at that strategy and where you're going to implement and the how this all maybe connects with that wider bit, as well as keeping those customers informed and working with them, right? But then for me, your product owners down in the day-to-day of this, trying to bring that to life, because you've got this lovely probably roadmap and things like that, but that's all well and good. Like, how do you make those decisions and trade-offs at the day-to-day level to get a release out at the right place with the right value in terms of work to the customer and things like that? So and we can chat about this more, and again, post in the community, right? Let's have the chat about it there to see what other people's views of this are. And places have very distinctive roles, but I find they, by company, they can vary depending on how somebody's interpreted that, and I don't always think they're right. And sometimes is it because they're doing project in disguise and they're not really product at all? They are still very much a project run organization, and somebody just becomes a product manager, but actually they're a project manager, which is not the same thing, or they're a BA in this. Because the other thing will be an interesting one's the value of a BA in the whole product management world as well. That's quite an interesting topic. But Kyle, I think you're chiming in there in the background.
No, because I do think it is a really interesting question, because me and Matt were chatting about it yesterday. I think so. I don't love the differentiation between the two, so we agreed that we would, because we thought, as is evidence, that it's a question people have, but really, like, in some sense, at least for me, it doesn't really matter, because one of the things that you said, Nidhi, which is, when you implement a project, you have to hand it off, and like and that was designed by somebody else. And actually, one of the great things about product management is it does try to solve for that. I think Beth said it, like, we create really intense focus on one thing, and whether you're a product manager or product owner, you should just like actually own the thing, have full accountability for it, and that really helps maintain the focus on the thing, not just during the build phase, but also when it's live. Because as he said, there's lots of upgrades, and if you have the same person and team working on it the whole way through, that's obviously just a better way to deliver value to the end customer. So I mean, I guess as Matt said, really, some companies have a very distinct difference. Product managers do strategy, product owners do delivery, but in the main, I think me and Matt think the two roles should be much closer together, and really it's just about owning the thing outright end to end and just being accountable for it.
I think that accountability is huge. And I mean, I'm working in a place at the minute where they've got all the right titles, but I would say they lack some of the accountability in those titles to be able to drive the right things forward at the right time, right? So again, you could have all those people, it doesn't mean that that's working correctly. I think the other thing, Kyle, on that point, which is quite interesting, when you have a product team, you actually start to streamline that whole flow of work, because you're not having to go out to tenders to get a new project or get budget approved. You build the persistent team, and then you build your product based off capacity, along with upgrades, along with new features, along with everything else, right? So you can get rid of some of that downtime as a team rolls off, and then that upskilling as another team rolls on, that I've seen in places as well. So
because it kind of ties back to the thing that Laura was saying earlier about the way in which they're set up within the organization. Because if you set up the team in such a way that the product owner / manager doesn't have accountability, ultimately they're probably going to fail, right? Because they can't actually own the thing. And like me and Matt would talk a lot to the people we work with about decision making, and two types of decisions: type 1, one-way door; type 2, two-way doors. And most decisions are type 2, and so you actually just need to make them really quickly, because you can reverse them. But if you have a situation where the product owner manager doesn't have accountability and therefore can't make decisions, now you just slow the whole thing down for a bunch of decisions that really are two-way doors. So
because
post the question indeed in the community, and we'll kick the chat off, right?
Okay, will do. Because it's
Jade,
I'm struggling with at the moment. It's just trying to understand who owns what, and understand the points of reference, and like you said, the accountability, because it feels like it keeps failing at that point. Like I've identified that potentially is a single source of failure once the project has been implemented, and it now has to go as part of a BAU process. And I'm just trying to be one step ahead and be like, okay, right, before we do this, who's going to own it, and why do you feel like you're the person that owns it, and stuff like that. Just to ask the right questions at the beginning.
I think things like, one of the things on that, one of the things I used at GSK was the rapid decision model, because the other problem you got is everybody thinks they should have a decision in some of this and they shouldn't. So like getting some of that laid out is quite an interesting thing, because people always want accountability for the nice, lovely, wonderful things that are happening, but they don't want when it's the rubbish. and that doesn't play in those roles, right? You take the good with the bad. So I think have a look at that, and we can see if there's decision models, accountability things as well that we can talk through, because that when you've got clearer lines, it helps. And like I think Kyle was saying, not just you've given the title, but you haven't been given any of the ability to make any decision behind it. What's the point? And that's where things fail. So yeah, let's have the chat about that. Jade, you're on my screen as well. I'm going to pick on you since you're sitting there with that lovely background in the green. I like it.
Matching Kevin's ceiling, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking that before.
One thing I love about product management is that it's basically solving problems, and I like the discovery process, speaking to users, finding out more about those problems and thinking how we could go about solving them. Maybe it's not the first thing you try, maybe you have to go through a few rounds in order to get there. But yeah, ultimately kind of aiming to solve a problem and hopefully make people's lives better. And one thing that I would improve within product management is I've worked in a lot of places and it's very much still a kind of project workflow and being given a list of requirements. Some people might call that like a feature factory way of working. So I guess that's the thing to improve, because what I love is exploring those problems and making sure you've got a solution that fits the right problem and you've properly understood the problem. The counter, the opposite to that, is being given a list of things to do, often without the why behind it, and just because someone senior has thought of something, and so that now needs to be done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I came from a world of SAP and huge implementations, and to honestly think that I can go and get a requirement in a complex business world that runs like that in a complex system, be able to design it and go away for, say, 12 months and come back and hit it bang on, is I find really odd now once I've experienced this other side of the world. And like you say, going back and using the Dabble model of discovery and things like that, I think it's a much improved way of working for a lot of situations, certainly. Who else we got? Eleanor, I think I see you just on the edge of my screen there as well. I'm scrolling through. I'm going to keep working my way down. So,
hi, I'm not a product manager or a product owner. I am interested in following maybe a path in this area, so that's why I joined. And going back to the point asked earlier by, I think, Nidhi, what's the difference between product owner and product manager? From my understanding, what I read a lot about it, a product owner is more concerned with the client product, like delivery and vision, and ensuring that you deliver what the client wants and needs. And a product manager manages like the actual product from beginning to end. That's my understanding. So yeah, but I'm new to this area, so I joined today just to find out more about it.
That's amazing. That's why this is here. We can certainly have a look at doing a kind of roles, responsibilities type thing as well, maybe in this, and looking at what session or what work we've got behind the scenes to be able to put out and help with that and the understanding of that. I think that would help. Who else we got? Pi, I see you typing in the chat there, Pi. Have you got anything to add to that?
I was trying to organize my ideas, but yes, what I love from product management, and I had the opportunity of working for a product center. So as a product manager, we have the opportunity to translate all the user needs and business needs towards a goal for the organization. But sometimes it's difficult to create the same synergy downstream the department. So sometimes all these ideas that are more, let's say, focus on the best practices, it's difficult to translate that mindset on the departments that are closer to the latest phases of the product development.
Yep. I think again, right, I think we can have a look at some of that, because that mindset thing is one of the things we look at, right? It is one of the hardest things to crack and get people into that way of thinking. You can put all the tools in front of them, all the techniques, but if you don't have the right mindset in that, it's a real hard job to try and change that. It's change of the business culture in that, right? Of how they've operated for year after year after year. And I think using things like the experimentation side of things, everybody, when I've been in places, they tell you this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And my bit as a product person going, right, let's test that, right? And helping to do that sort of thing, to try and change mindsets, going, look, we didn't actually know that, or this is how we should go about working on this part of the backlog. I think it helps in that sense. So yeah, I think that's part of the thing that I found useful.
Yeah, totally.
Who else we got? Thea.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say one thing I love is probably a bit similar to what Jade said. I think sort of being able to dig into those complex problems and find out, yeah, what complex problems exist in this particular business domain, and being able to make data-driven decisions about how to best solve them. It's really fun. In terms of the thing to improve, I don't know. I think maybe it is probably similar to what you've been discussing with like business culture. Sometimes when you come up against just being given a list of requirements, I'm not especially keen on that kind of word as well. It's a bit of a difficult way of looking at it, because it's often hard to dig into the why, and you're limited in how much you can really change that mindset, really.
I think I like the bit about the data-driven decision making. That's one of the things we talk to people we work with a lot of, like, I'm fine you're coming up with that, but put the data behind the why, the frequency it's happening, the impact to the business, whatever that is, right? Put some numbers behind it so I can now look at my backlog and go, from cost of delay, right? This is better than that one, or more valuable to business than that. And it is one of the hardest things, because I think it goes back to, you see some places that are agile, but they just are basically churning out requirements of, like, we're going to do this. And it's like, well, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no reason, or like, how as a product, if I put a product owner hat on, right, do I prioritize in backlog when they all look the same to me? They're just aligned saying, I want this. So I think that data piece is something we try and work heavily with people to question it, right? And you've got to push back, but I can't push back if I don't really know what the value of anything is. So I think that's the hard bit when you do this role, right? Liliana.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Sorry. I just love everything about product management. It's for me, product management is where things in large enterprises fails, like severely fails, because they're not driving value creation and customer centricity. And for me, this is the biggest worry now with the silo AI use of everyone is going to their own computer with their own answers. So for me, it's I published today an article, and like I published my thoughts on an article about productivity and repeating cycle 40 years ago. And it's very interesting because product management is amazing, and I like pragmatic marketing framework. I really like it, and I think it's a pity that pragmatic marketing hasn't been better to publicize the framework. I don't know, Matt, if you're aware of it.
No.
If you just Google pragmatic marketing framework, it's amazing framework to actually think, where are you focusing? Are you focusing on strategy? Are you focusing on execution? Are you focusing on supporting users? Where there is, did you just Google it? It's a great tool to also talk to create a strategy, but also it's a great tool to talk to stakeholders and saying, this is great, you want that, but are we building strategy for our product? Are we supporting our current users, and so on and so on? So this is, for me, it's something that it's not used enough. And when I talk to any product managers, I always say, go and learn about it, because I think it's a brilliant framework. And what is the one thing you would improve with?
Yeah.
I would say it's the one thing I will improve. It's and again, I think that we need to start really with AI nowadays. We really need to start segmenting our view on everything. Because if you talk about product management in small companies or startups, like let's say that a product management of 10 to 15 to, let's say, 50 people, then it's one thing, which I'm not expert of. But if we talk about large enterprises, I really think that one thing I will change if I had the magic wand is create accountability of the product managers of whatever they decide to drive, to actually track ROIs or track whatever is the value or benefits that has been intended. And I think in large enterprises, this is very quickly forgotten. Others like OKRs and blah, 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 and all of that stuff, everything. In reality is that the budgets are so big that no one really tracks value creation and customer centricity, and doesn't hold the decision. And I'm not talking about in a bad way, because for me, it's like holding accountability. It's about learning, improving, but also surviving, like not having a Kodak moment or any other moments. So those are the things I will say. It's, for me, it's I have worked with a lot of various teams, companies, industries, but to be honest, only once I have built a team when I was with Unilever that we really connected the dots and we put the value creation in the business kind of yearly objectives.
Yeah.
And it just changed the conversation. The team was working together, everyone was building, and the team was ready to challenge things that they were not delivering value.
Yeah.
So scrutinize value and customer centricity, and not saying we are too busy with the next shiny thing. I think this is the only way any company will survive with AI.
Yeah. No, I agree. Great comments.
Yeah.
I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. We're obviously trying to build that community, like I said, and the network. So drop your LinkedIns into the chat, get connected. We all have a shared interest in this. There's mine. So say anybody who isn't connected, I know I'm connected to a few people on the call already. Drop me a line. Say the rest of you stick them in, and we'll start trying to build our network, because ultimately when you need it, when you want to move around jobs and things like that, it really helps. So have the people that fight your corner and can help guide you as well. So anybody, any last points before we wrap up? Is this being useful? Are we excited by where we're going with this?
Sorry, I'm just going to digress really quickly, so I do apologize. I've just realized that, Kyle, I'm actually just doing your product mastery program on Udemy. Sorry,
Awesome.
I just popped that.
So
yeah,
indeed, that's a nice segue, actually.
It looks familiar. Why do I know the face? And then I realized you're literally on my other screen. So hello,
Matt,
nice to meet you.
If I can steal a minute, mate, I'll share my screen quickly.
Go for it.
I just want to give a whistle-stop tour of Mighty and how we're going to use that space.
Yep.
So you should see my screen load now. Let me know when you can see that. Is that loaded for you guys? Yeah, cool. So when you first come into Mighty, to get into the product space, you'll have to just scroll down the left here and this is in the web app. obviously, pick the product management space, and it will bring you into what is basically a dashboard of top posts, featured posts, etc., etc., etc. The spaces that you can engage with are the feed, a chat, the events tab, resources section. I'll quickly talk through all these, but fundamentally, anything that you want to add to this space is driven by this green create button in the top right. So if you click create here, you can write a post. So that's like a basic news feed, what you put on LinkedIn. If you're interested in longer form, you can write an article, and in there you can start to do things like embed pictures and links and video into that post. You can post a question as an actual, a featured question on here, or as a poll if you want to get some votes and responses to things. And you're completely welcome to share details of your own events. So there'll be content in here that me and members and Matt and the Send will be providing for you guys. But if you guys are going to a product event or speaking at a product event, you're more than welcome to share those details. And that's a very quick form that you fill in with date, time, copy and paste the content over, whatever. So the features that you've got is a news feed like LinkedIn. So you'll see a ticker of relevant posts. I'm not a massive fan of this, but there's a chat function. So if people want to work out a way to use that and reply to each other and things and build messages in there, you can do. The events page will over time show all the upcoming events. Obviously, if you're going to past events now, you've got today's and the one that Caroline did for us a few weeks ago. And the only thing you can't actually edit yourselves, what we want you to contribute to, is this resources section. And the reason you can't edit yourselves is because we want to curate this to make sure it's catalogued in a way that's sensible to navigate. But fundamentally, we can add any sections in here to create spaces for different types of content. The ones we've got at the moment are general resources. So one of our earlier product mentors shared this Miro board that he built. It's a useful tool. All of our webinar recordings, so this today will be posted in here, and the future sessions will be as well. External podcasts that people recommended, we've got a place in here. There could be a book section. And as Ndidi mentioned, the Ascend guys have very kindly made their Udemy course free to our members. So there's a link here for you to access that Product Mastery Pathway course that Ascend has sorted on Udemy for us. So please do engage with the network, use that space to drive conversation. If there's a question you want to ask, is there anything you want to get any feedback or thoughts on? Like, there's 250 people in the network that are interested in product or experts in product. So, use the community.
Yep. Perfect. We are a minute over. Anybody for anything else?
Sorry, what is the next session?
Good question.
We will get that out to you because, as I say, we're going to curate from multiple people as well, but we will have a look at the diaries and get the next virtual session in, but it's probably 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to do one virtual a month at the minute. Obviously, if there's more people involved, that could go up as well, depending on that. So yeah, stay posted. If you keep an eye on the events and Kevin's emails and that sort of thing, we'll get it out there soon.